Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. We're going to start with the numbers of recordings in May. While the show is being taped in June, we talk about the previous month's recordings. I have a great guest on my second segment of the show, Angelo Nuby from Mass Housing. And in the third segment, we talk about some of Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony's great history. So let's get right to the numbers. You're going to see a bar chart come up of deeds, basically deeds of sales of property. And for the month of May, there were 637 deeds recorded, higher than the 570 in April. Highest numbers you can see since September. And clearly the real estate market is still sluggish, but we still have activity. Next image you're going to see is of mortgages. Is of the sales of property. There are 27 communities in Plymouth County from Abington to Whitman. And as you can see, there have been sales in each of the communities for May. Plymouth and Brockton have the largest amount of sales, but every community has had real estate activity. Next bar chart is of mortgages. Mortgages have been at a funny phase. When the interest rates went up, certainly all the refinancing of mortgages disappeared. There's still mortgages for purchases that are happening. There are 1,151 mortgages recorded in May, more than the 1095 in April. However, 10% less than last May, and year-to-date, we're down 4%. The next image you're going to see is of foreclosure deeds. A foreclosure deed is when a lender usually has taken back a property, usually for failure to pay. Those numbers have been very low since COVID, when there was a freeze, a moratorium on foreclosures. However, there were 6 foreclosed properties in Plymouth County in May, less than the 13 in April. But however, year to date, because we're coming off that COVID freeze still, and lenders are getting caught up, it's 17% higher than last year at this time. And next image you're going to see is of foreclosure notices. You can see there's a bump this past month. It went from 62 in April to 71 in May. And that is a troubling sign. And again, lenders are getting caught up with people that have been facing difficulty. If you are in trouble paying your mortgage and having difficulty, reach out to a federal housing counselor as fast as you can to try to work out some kind of an arrangement so you do not lose your property. There's a group called NeighborWorks that we send the foreclosure notice information every month, and they reach out to homeowners and try to help them through a troubling time. It can happen for a lot of reasons. A lost job, a sickness in the family, but whatever the reason is, the longer you wait, the more difficult it is to solve your problem. You're also seeing now a list of foreclosure deeds and orders of notice, foreclosure notices for the 27 communities in Plymouth County. As you can see, there is still a lot of zeros on the board, although if you look at Brockton, Plymouth, Wareham, you'll see some activity. And again, if you're facing difficulty, please reach out to a federal housing counselor. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we've always done something educational in nature. We've had surveyors, appraisers, commercial real estate brokers, home inspectors, different people that are involved in the housing community. And I have a great repeat guest today, Angelo Nuby from Mass Housing. Welcome back.
All right. Thank you, John.
It's always good to see you.
Always good to see you. Always a wonderful conversation.
So I like always to share with our viewers a little bit about how you ended up in this role and how you ended up in the real estate community.
So certainly, kind of an interesting start. I wasn't sure that I was going to end up in the mortgage business. My wife actually worked for a mortgage insurance company and was typing my resume many years ago, 40-some years ago. And her boss looked over her shoulder and said, "Oh, what are you up to?" And she said, I'm typing the resume for my boyfriend at the time. My wife and I have known each other since we were 16 in high school.
Oh,
wow. And he says, "You know what? I think I know someone who is looking for entry-level position." So I started out as a mortgage processor in 1983, and then a few years later, because the mortgage business was as unstable as people may think it is now, back then that we were going through a little bit of a mini crisis. I ended up working for Plymouth 5-Cent Savings Bank.
Oh wow!
That was my big start. I became an underwriter for Plymouth 5-Cent Savings Bank. Worked there for many years, right down on the waterfront, and from there have worked for some federal organizations. I worked for Fannie Mae. I've worked for several institutions, but then landed with Mass Housing some 17 years ago, and this has become home for me.
Wow. So you've certainly seen the different cycles of the real estate market.
Yes. We went through in the late 80s the condo boom, up and down in the condo boom, back in the days when I used to underwrite, and we would actually read credit reports. Now we have FICO scores.
Right.
And also working for a smaller institution, the way that we process loans, there was a different feel to it.
Yeah.
We really touched our customers more. It was more about the customer and not about the form, not about the data as much. But then, fast forward through many years of retail banking and consumer lending, onto now where everything is technology. It's the black boxes.
Right. So you went through the mortgage boom, and then the bust in 2003.
Right, exactly.
And 2004, and you also went through the COVID years.
And then through the COVID years, and when I started with Mass Housing, I was first working with during the crises, 2007, 2008, when we all were trying to work through how do we save these families, how do we keep them in their homes, how do we find resources in order to keep these families in their homes, and then we move forward into the COVID years where technology took over. We're working from home, Zoom. We've taken on a totally different role from this side of the business and how we do our outreach. How do we make consumers aware, prospective homeowners aware? How do we continue, and you mentioned education, how do we continue to educate those prospective homeowners to make sure that they understand what process they'll be going through and what resources are available to them for that first-time home buyer purchase?
Our world has certainly changed post-COVID.
It has. It certainly has. It certainly has.
So talk a little bit about Mass Housing.
So Mass Housing is a quasi-state agency, and we have a mission goal, and that mission goal is primarily focused on first-time home buyers, but not all. My goal is really to educate those first-time home buyers using Mass Housing's programs, and these are programs that programs are Mass Housing's, but we have to work with partners, and those are mortgage companies, banks, and credit unions who are across the state, who provide the processing part of the process. And then we also work with local nonprofits. One of Plymouth Redevelopment provides education. Neighborhood Housing Solutions is another resource that provides the educational part of what we do. And then it's the down payment assistance. This is the big one. For those individuals who think that I have to put down 20%, there's no way that I can buy a home even in the environment that we're in. I want to let you know that there are opportunities out there. There are resources and down payment assistance that Mass Housing provides that can be made in conjunction with other resources that are out there to help you buy that first home.
So what are the most sought-after programs currently with Mass Housing?
Certainly. So the most sought-after program is called Workforce Advantage. This is for individuals who are at or below 80% of area median income. $30,000. And this is a loan, but it's $30,000, zero interest deferred. So no monthly payment. So the debt to income that usually restricts so many people, that's not there. You can buy anywhere in the Commonwealth. So even though you may live in Hanson, where I live, you can buy in Plymouth. Mm-hmm. You can buy in the Berkshires. You can buy up north. So those restrictions are removed, and the income levels at 80% or less may sound low, but I think it really fits that niche. And then we have a second level. That's the most popular. Zero interest deferred, and there are a lot of fees that are associated. Mass Housing covers those. MI Plus, if you lose your job, Mass Housing has a program where we pay up to $2,000 a month for 6 months. Wow. $12,000, zero is paid back. Wow. Zero is paid back. So it keeps those families. You don't have to worry about your job. You don't have to worry about the interest rate as much. We may talk about that, but It's all about taking the payment that you have and making it work with the resources that are available, our down payment assistance, and other resources that can be layered with our down payment assistance to keep that payment low.
So I always have a soft spot for first-time home buyers. So some of those programs could apply to them?
Certainly, especially the first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that the first-time home buyer is in a very stable situation. We'll help you buy that home, but we're not gonna give you a mortgage. You have to work for it. The down payment, can be if you're buying a multifamily, a down payment can be as little as 3% of your own money. Yeah. And if you're buying a single family or a condominium, there are programs that are as low as 1.5%. And utilizing the resources that are available, we're still going to have you in a stable situation. As a first-time home buyer, we don't want you to have a crisis 1 year in, 2 years in. We want it to be a long-term ownership.
So I know the language that we've always talked about has been sustainable housing.
Yes.
And a little bit different subject. I saw a poll recently that a large number of young people do not believe they'll ever own a home, and that is very sad.
It is. Many years ago, and when I say many years ago, say pre-COVID, when we would look at the numbers, Boston and Massachusetts was always a little bit higher when it came to home ownership. But there were always those communities. There were always those communities where you could point to and say, you could buy a home there, you can buy a starter home there. And now I think we're either number 2 or number 3 in the country.
Yeah, I believe it.
And it is driving folks crazy. Many years ago I lived in California, and this is back in 1981, 1982, and I used to see homes for $250,000. These were what we call campanellis.
Yeah, sure.
Out in California with the pool and the palm trees. And so, back in the 80s, a campanelli was probably what, $40,000-$50,000.
Right.
What are they now? $450,000, $500,000.
Big numbers.
Big numbers. But the opportunity is still there, and I don't want people to think that the opportunity is not there. With the right education, with the right program, we can still put you in a home. We can still put you in a stable home.
What is the newest of your programs?
So the newest of the programs is still the Workforce Advantage 4.0. That's the newest. Well, it's new because we made an adjustment a couple of months ago. The program was a little bit restrictive on where the resources could be used. And what we did is we removed that restriction. At one time, the program was specifically for gateway communities. Okay. For instance, a gateway community in this area would be Brockton. Right. And then there's Barnstable County, Hyannis, and Taunton, New Bedford, Fall River, Quincy, are gateway communities. Well, we removed that restriction. Okay. So it makes it easier for that first-time home buyer to get into the program. We also have no asset restrictions. So there are many programs that have asset restrictions of $75,000. We don't have any of that.
Okay.
So we're making it as easy as possible, still with great underwriting from our lender partners and still with the education, but we've made the program easier to access along with other resources that are available.
So what do you see is the future of mass housing in housing generally over the next couple of years?
I think that the future of mass housing is great, and I'll go through just a couple of points. One is that we have a mission goal. One of the things that we wanted to do by 2026 is to ensure that at least 50% of all that we do, all of the production that we have, was to communities that were underserved, and specifically to the BIPOC communities. Well, we've met that goal. We've met that goal a year ahead of time, but we're going to continue to increase that goal. So that's there as part of our mission. The other part of the mission is developing both housing, new housing across the Commonwealth, making resources available for the development of new housing stock and rentals, because not everyone wants to be a homeowner. Right. So that is still there, and we have many more resources available to assist us there. And then there is the Mass Community Climate Bank. The Climate Bank is something new, just announced about a month or so ago, where we're here to assist current homeowners who are looking to make their homes more efficient, to increase the efficiency of their homes, whether it be through solar panels, whether it be through new windows, plantings. But we've become more diversified, so that we can increase the opportunities to many more families, both current homeowners and prospective homeowners.
So I know you and I have worked together at least since the foreclosure crisis.
Right.
And I know there's some transition coming up in your life.
Yes. So I'm retiring, and I'm retiring officially on June 28th of this year, so the end of the fiscal year. But I will be staying on with Mass Housing as a contractor through December 31st. So anybody who wants to reach out to me, all of my contact information will remain the same. Angelo Nuby at masshousing.com. And my number is 857-472-9010. You can see all of that at masshousing.com. But I will be staying on. It's been a wonderful, wonderful 41 years, many of those years spent in collaboration with your office and the Brockton Housing Partnership. We've participated on so many different events over the years. So it's been a great run. And it's been a pleasure, and I have just so many wonderful memories. And I'll continue to have those memories and continue to work with the folks across the Commonwealth.
Well, you've been a great resource for many, many years, and I appreciate you sharing the information on my show multiple times.
Well, thank you so much, John. It's always been a pleasure. Thank you again.
Great, thanks. Welcome back to the Register's Report. Again, my name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. I want to thank Angelo Nuby for the great job he did in describing mass housing and some of its great products. I also want to thank Angelo for the many years of service to the people of the Commonwealth and Plymouth County, and the fact that he's a Plymouth County resident in the town of Hanson makes it even better. But in this segment of the show, we talked about something a little lighter in nature. We talk about some of our great Plymouth County and Plymouth colony history. So the holidays of the month was World Milk Day on the 1st, the D-Day anniversary, which was covered very well by national media, Flag Day, which is today's taping, Father's Day on this Sunday, Juneteenth on the 19th, and the summer solstice, the beginning of summer, on the 20th. But I thought it would be nice, as people are going to be spending time near our waters, to talk about some of our lighthouses. So you'll see a lighthouse in Plymouth, the Gurnet Light, Plymouth Light it's called, but it was the site of America's first female lighthouse keeper, Hannah Thomas. She was a person that worked with her husband, John. When he went off to war, he was killed in the American Revolution, and she became America's first lighthouse keeper. They later sold the lighthouse to the United States government and is presently cared for by Project Garnet. The next notable record is a Scituate Lighthouse, another famous lighthouse down on Scituate Harbor. The United States government opened a lighthouse on Cedar Point in Scituate in 1811. Simeon Bates was the first lighthouse keeper. In the summer of 1814, when he was away, he left his daughters, Rebecca and Abigail, in charge. When they saw barges filled with British soldiers coming into the harbor, they brought people together. They made a lot of noise like there were troops mustering and scared them out of the harbor. They thought they were coming upon the militia and beat a hasty retreat. So the legend of the Army of Two was created. The lighthouse is now owned by the town. It's recently being a project of renovation that is currently in the final stages. But over the years, for many people that have been in that area, when it's been a windy day, they've heard music of the fife and drum mixing with the sound of the winds and the waves crashing on the jetties leading into Scituate Harbor. And the last lighthouse I'll talk about today is Minot's Ledge Light. It's located, again, 1 mile offshore from the town of Scituate in Plymouth County. It was the first lighthouse was washed away in a storm. Many shipwrecks in that area, a lot of shoals, and lives were lost. They emphasized at the national level the great need for a lighthouse, and there was a decision to build a new lighthouse on May 1st, 1894. A new flashing lantern was installed, and it was installed with the characteristic 143. 143 is the flashing of I love you, hence the name of Minot's Ledge Light as Lover's Light. It's built on a 25-foot rocky outcropping. It is currently owned by private ownership. And last but not least, we have a county record for the establishment of the town of Freetown. So we share our Plymouth County records, particularly since the Plymouth 400. This particular document is from the court orders back in 1683 and established a town which is now in Bristol County, but back in the day when Plymouth Colony went all the way down through Barnstable County, all the way to Tiverton, Rhode Island. So a lot of those towns that are now in Bristol County or Barnstable County were towns in Plymouth County. I want to thank the folks here at the local scene in Plymouth for helping me with this program. We're happy to share information about what, for most people, real estate, home ownership is their most valuable asset. So have a great Father's Day. Anyone out there, have a great start to the summer from the summer solstice, and we'll see you next month.